Okay, by my clock here on the East Coast, it is 12 o'clock noon, which marks the beginning of our HQ Rio COVID-19 vaccine town hall. We have got, wow, almost 250 of you here. So we are certainly glad that you've come to the right place. Hopefully we'll be able to answer as many of your questions as we can. We'd like to start off with our commander, HQ Rio Commander Colonel Amy Bailey. She'd like to make a few comments, and then I will sort of take over with some slides and go over the rules of engagement. But to kick off, ma'am, the floor is yours.
Okay, how do you copy, Erin? Okay, very good. All right, good morning, everyone from Denver. Thanks for joining us today. There is a lot going on, and my number one priority always has been and always will be you. And I thought it was time we paused to talk about the COVID vaccine. What we will talk about today are the things that we know and the guidance and the processes that have been laid out for us. If you haven't done your research and read everything that the Department of Defense put out, the Air Force put out, AFRIC put out, we put out, I ask you to do that. Don't wait for someone else to tell you what to do because they probably don't know. So I'm asking you to reach out and learn it yourselves and then come to us with your questions. What we're not going to talk about today on this call are our personal beliefs about the vaccine, okay? I was at the Wing Commanders Conference last week, and it's very clear. The Chief of Staff of the Air Force, General Brown, said we're getting our vaccines. We know that to be the case, right? So we have an order to do that. And he said it really boils down to a readiness issue. But we also understand that everyone has unique circumstances and concerns, and that's what we're going to talk about and work through with you today with the information we have. The guidance coming out gets better each time the guidance comes out, and it becomes more clarifying. But a lot of what we're seeing from AFRIC is TR specific, and that's understandable. That's the majority of their population. But we're not TRs. We're amazing IMAs, and we work in every active component, MAGCOM, COCOM, DoD agency. And because of that, we're a little bit different. And the active duty chain of command, and each command is different for those of you that have worked in different active component commands, it's a little bit different. And so approaching an IMA in this situation will be a little bit different based on your active duty components, leadership, chain of command, and MAGCOM's directives. One size does not fit all for our IMAs, depending on where they work. Okay, we know that. So your active component unit can accelerate the date that you need to be vaccinated by. They can and might have done that in writing or verbally. They can withhold your orders or end your orders or prohibit your participation and can actually order you to be on an order to get vaccinated with a few caveats. But if you work with them and make your intentions known in a polite, respectful, professional way, you'll continue to foster that positive relationship with your active component unit, and we'll all get through this in a positive way. We'll get into some slides here in just a minute that will address the majority of your concerns and the questions, and then we'll open it up for your questions. One last note though, everyone has an opinion about how the process is, how it should be done, what you're allowed to do, but make sure you're working with the right people, specifically your active component supervisor and detachments to get that information. The person on your left and the gal on your right all have different opinions on how this should work. Don't talk to a TR unit about how it should work for you because you will not get the right answer. You know what I'm saying, right? Make sure you're getting the information from the right people that have the information. We'll support you and help you work through this with the guidance that we have. One last topic that has nothing to do with the COVID vaccine is the continuing resolution and funding. AFRIC is still working through funding issues. and the pending CR is not helping, and the money struggle is real. I know people don't believe me when I say that because we say it every year. This year, it's real. Come 1 October, I have to take all 45 of my RPAers off their orders, and they aren't coming back. That will impact you and me. I also don't have any money right now to approve any AT orders or IDTs. And I know some of you are waiting for your orders to be approved so you can start working on the 1st of October. That probably will not happen. Do not work if you don't have an approved order in hand. What I am recommending you do, if possible, to all of our IMAs is to push your AT and IDTs to the 2nd quarter or beyond of the fiscal year. That will give you the most flexibility to perform those duties. Until I have money in my account, I cannot approve orders. Okay, enough about that. So Erin, I'm going to turn it over to you. We've got a lot of great experts. We've got a lot of great experts on the call, and I'm watching the questions come in already. I'm a little distracted. So we'll walk through this and see how far we get, and then we'll open it up to questions. So Erin, over to you.
Great, thank you, ma'am. Yeah, I do see the questions flowing in, and if I could ask everybody to please hold off on those. Let me get through some ROEs and talk about some stuff. We will try to get your questions answered. If the questions are not vaccine related, that's what the focus of this town hall is, then it might be later at the, we'll try to get your questions answered. There's a lot of other venues, specifically the Rio Connect app and your group chats there. Contact your detachment, regarding things like points only. You can even ping us on Facebook, and I will try to get your questions answered or get you to the right person. Let me share my screen over here again. Okay, here we go. All right. Hi, I'm Lieutenant Colonel Erin Carl. I'm the Public Affairs Officer for Headquarters Rio. And what we figured the best way to handle today's event would be to put together some slides. These have been coordinated with AFRIC SG as well as ARPC-JA, specifically the Rio legal advisor, to make sure that all the information, at least as of this moment right now, because we can't guarantee what additional guidance may come out in the future, but as of this moment, these slides are correct and coordinated with those 2 offices. So I'm going to brief these slides and try to explain all the general stuff that we can give you. And then we will open it up for Q&A. When we get to that point, I'll talk about the ROEs for how that Q&A will work. While Colonel Bailey did address the continuing resolution, and all eyes are on the Senate this morning, from here on out till the end of the event, we really ask that you stay in the lane of the COVID-19 vaccine and any questions or concerns you have about that. If you haven't already, can you double check and make sure that you are muted and that your camera is off when we get to the Q&A, and you're called on for a question, we'll handle it at that time. But now it's my turn to talk about stuff. So here we go. All right. First, I'm just going to go over the basics. Active duty airmen are supposed to comply with getting the COVID-19 vaccine by 2 November. That was a directive given out by the SECAF. The SECAF and General Scobie have set the date of 2 December for members of the Air Force Reserve. However, as Colonel Bailey mentioned, IMAs, and I am one as well, we're in this sort of dual hat place where we are reservists, but we are assigned to active component units. Because of that, if our active component commanders want to hold us to an earlier date, either the 2 November date or even earlier than that, they can do that, okay? The Pfizer vaccine, which has full FDA approval, as well as the Moderna and Johnson & Johnson vaccines, all satisfy the mandate for being fully vaccinated. The other thing that's important for you to know is that while you can get the vaccine at your nearest MTF or reserve medical unit, as reservists, you can also go down the street to your nearest Walgreens or CVS or county shot line and get your vaccines that way. The COVID-19 vaccines are free regardless of insurance throughout the United States. So it's not a matter of needing to pay for it. If you do get it from a civilian provider, however, the mandate is that within 72 hours that you provide that shot record information to military MTF or through Rio Medical to update your medical records. And I'll talk more about that as we go. All right, so by 2 December, that's the date in the SecApp memo given for reservists to be vaccinated. Again, 2 November is for active component, 2 December is for reservists. However, we might be subject to an earlier date because we are assigned to active duty units. You are asked to be in one of 3 categories by that date. One is being fully vaccinated. The second category is already have an approved exemption, and I'll talk here about exemptions in a moment, or have an eligible exemption that it's working its way through the system. The third is that you state you are declining the vaccine. Now that decision is incompatible with continued military service. And so we will talk about what things may happen as a result of your choice not to receive the vaccine. But let's first talk about how to update your records. The first thing you can do is and this is if you don't get it done at an MTF or a reserve medical unit, because if you do it there, they're going to update your records automatically. But if you get it on the civilian side, or if you previously got it and you've just never sent it in, you can go to your servicing MTF, and this can be virtual, of course, and provide them a copy of your shot record. Some MTFs to which we are assigned make that process easier than others. I'm very lucky. I'm near Seymour Johnson, and there's a nurse there who that's her job is to oversee IMAs in the area. So I know if I submit my information to her, she'll update my records. Some of us have more of a difficult time. So therefore, we also have within HQ Rio, our IMR section, our Rio medical team. If you go to MyPERS, you can submit a scanned copy or a photo of a vaccine card, and then they will update your records for you. On the next slide, I'm going to show you exactly where to go on MyPERS to do that. But I need you to understand something. Right now, there are 3 technicians who can update those records, and there are almost 8,000 of you. And obviously, with all the messaging that you've seen recently, a lot of people are sending in their shot records for updates. So it's not going to be updated within a matter of days if you use the MyPERS Rio medical system to update your records. I believe their auto reply message right now says 10 to 15 business days at least. And with the funding issues and all that kind of stuff, it may take even longer when more people are getting their records updated. So just keep that in mind, because you're not going to turn green in IMR and an ARCnet until your record is uploaded and it shows either your second shot of a 2-shot series or the single Johnson & Johnson shot. You need to work in that time that it's going to take the human beings who process these thousands of records that are coming in and getting it updated to your records. So it may be faster for you to go through your active component MTF to do that, or it may be faster to do it via MyPERS. But either way, you've got to understand the capacity of the technicians that are working those records for us. Here's how you're going to submit those records. If you go into MyPERS, someone needs to mute, please.
I'll mention that WebEx message space a bit later on.
You get it? All right, thank you. So if you go into MyPERS, on those links down the side, select IMA Management. Then this IMA Management page will come up, and you can select the individual medical readiness requirements. When that page comes up, right before the blue bar, you'll see a link that says Submit Medical Requests by clicking here. And you'll want to select labs and immunizations, because that's what this is. It's just another shot, like the flu shot or whatever. Okay, then you're going to upload your photo or your scanned copy of your COVID card, write a little message in there. Hey, can you update my records, please? Thanks so much. Appreciate all your hard work. Have a great day. Sign your name. And then the ticket will show up in your incidents and messages in MyPERS. You will get an auto reply message that tells you, what they expect the wait to be. and then you can wait patiently for your records to be updated, which is one of the many reasons we are telling people to try and get this done as soon as possible. Can you wait? So my recommendation is don't focus on that 2 December date for a number of reasons. One, as we mentioned, you might be held to an earlier date. 2, it could take a few weeks for your records to get updated simply because of the sheer volume of records our technicians are receiving. So the takeaway is get started now, all right? Also keep in mind that if you're doing the 2-shot series, the CDC recommends that for Moderna, there's a 28-day wait between the 2 shots. And for the Pfizer, there's a 21-day wait. So you have to look at the calendar and project out. If you haven't started doing this yet, you know, time is literally of the essence if you want to be sure to meet the mandate. All right, let's talk a little bit about religious exemptions. So one of the main differences between a TR and an IMA is that we fall under the active component chain when it comes to exemptions. So the process will begin with the chaplaincy at your assigned unit. You need to be counseled by a chaplain, your commander, and medical. Now that can be over the telephone or a virtual meeting. And they are expecting it to take roughly at least 60 days to process that exemption, okay? And here's the routing chain. It goes to your squadron, your group, your wing, and then to the MAJCOM commander. So your MAJCOM commander is the final approval authority for your exemption. When that exemption is approved, it's loaded into ASIMS that feeds our MyIMR and then flows over into ArcNet, and it's noted in your personnel file. Those approved exemptions will remain in effect until such time that your mission requires you to have full vaccination or if your beliefs change, okay? Other than that, the different reasons for religious exemption, those are all questions to address directly to your chaplaincy. Sort of like Colonel Bailey said at the beginning, every unit is different, every chain is different, because there's different people in our different MAJCOMs and wings, COCOMs, et cetera, that we are assigned to. So if you think that a religious exemption might be something you want to seek, it's really, really important that you contact the chaplaincy at your unit ASAP and get it going and get your questions answered by them to see if it's a viable exemption request. Medical exemptions. So your medical exemptions are processed at your assigned units, MTF. Again, your active component chain, not through the headquarters reserve, okay? You need to have medical documentation submitted in your military record of a significant allergy to the ingredients in that specific vaccine or a medical diagnosis that's contraindicated to the specific vaccine. When you apply for a medical exemption, you need to be counseled by a military healthcare provider, a military, not just the documentation from a civilian doctor. That can be virtual or over the telephone. The approved exemptions remain in effect for the specific vaccine. And again, especially, if you don't live anywhere near your assigned unit, check and see if virtual appointments are available for you to start that if you think seeking a medical exemption is something you want to go for. Having a documented allergy to one vaccine doesn't exempt you from all the vaccines because they have different ingredients. So keep that in mind. Also, like anything else that we put in our bodies, medically or otherwise, especially for medications, there are listed common side effects. Common side effects are not considered an allergy. So if there's a particular side effect that you are concerned about, you need to see if that is listed as a common side effect of that vaccine, because if it is, it's not going to be considered an allergy. If you have questions about that, by all means, those questions need to go to the medical providers that you're assigned to MTF. Approved exemptions, once they're approved, just like the religious exemptions, those are loaded into your medical records that flow to ASIMS and MyIMR. Regardless of status, all IRs are going to work, and by IRs, we're talking about IMAs and PIRR. Your exemptions are worked through your active component chain. It doesn't matter whether you're in any sort of status right now or not. It's also important for you to keep in mind that receiving an exemption to a force readiness requirement can have impact on things what you might be able to do in your military career. There may be deployments that you can't do, certain TDYs and schools that you can't attend, certain jobs or positions that you cannot hold. Some medical issues that would lead to an exemption may also require you going to med board to see if you're still qualified for service. So there are some ramifications to seeking a medical exemption, and any questions about those need to be directed to a military medical professional. So let's try and answer some common questions here. Can you be ordered into a status and compelled to be vaccinated? Yes. Active component commanders do have the authority to order you into a status and order you to receive the vaccine. You can refuse it or seek an exemption, but the possibility for that commander to order you into status, specifically, usually AT, is a possibility. They can do that legally. Can you be ordered by your unit to be fully vaccinated by a date earlier than 2 December? We've answered that a couple times. The answer is yes. Can you choose yourself to transfer into the IRR rather than receive the vaccine? No. The guidance came out from the Department of the Air Force was very clear. The FAQs stated that choosing to enter the IRR because you don't want to receive the vaccine was not going to be allowed. Can you receive the vaccine at an MTF if you're not in a paid status? Yes, but you should be in a status. So points only IDT is an acceptable status. So it doesn't have to be a paid status, but you do need to be in a status. Again, points only IDT is fine. Can you be ordered by your component commander to get vaccinated if you're not in status? Again, yes. We're just sort of putting this another way just to make sure we're driving this home. Yes, you can, because it's a readiness item. It's no different than the mandate to get a yearly flu vaccine. So you can refuse to get the vaccine, but then you'll go red after 2 December in your IMR, and therefore administrative action can be taken, just like it can for any other readiness item that we don't comply with. So refusals. The choice not to be vaccinated, the DoD has said that that is incompatible with continued military service. The date by which the following can happen can be 2 December, or it can be an earlier date if your active component commander wants to ask for that. So here are just a list of some possible administrative actions that may happen as a result of your choice to refuse receiving the COVID-19 vaccine. You can be put on a no pay, no points status. If you are on current orders, you could have those orders curtailed to the suspense date. Let's say you have orders that take you to December 31st, but you don't comply by December 2nd, or you haven't complied yet. They can choose to curtail your orders to December 2nd. And then if you get vaccinated between now and then your orders would be modded to extend you back out to your original end date. Hopefully that's clear. You could be denied future orders. You could be sent home. You could be retired or separated earlier than whatever your planned or approved retirement date or separation date is. Or you could be made to retire or separate from the Air Force. These are just some possibilities. This list is not exhaustive, but it's hopefully giving you an idea of what possible things you can expect if you choose to refuse the vaccine. What if you have a reaction? Okay, this is why being in some sort of status, even if it is when you are receiving the vaccine from a civilian provider, is important. And again, points only status is fine, a points only IDT. Because if you do have a reaction to the vaccine and the vaccine is administered when you are in some sort of status, then it might possibly be a line of duty occurrence. So what needs to happen is if you have a reaction, you need to contact your active component MTF and report it. If the symptoms are beyond the expected possible side effects, okay? So, hey, I'm tired for a day after the shot, or, whatever the list of side effects is for the particular vaccine you choose to take. If your symptoms are only those that are listed on the common side effects, according to your MTF provider, then it kind of stops there. But if they are beyond that, if your reaction is beyond what those common side effects are listed to be, again, according to the provider you speak to at the MTF, then what you need to do is contact the Rio medical team via MyPERS using the same set of links that I showed you before. But instead of selecting labs and immunizations, you need to select line of duty because they would initiate the line of duty determination. Do you have to get the vaccine if? All right. If you have an approved retirement date, these are sort of a few things that have to fit within this box. If your retirement date is after 2 December, but before 2 June, and if the retirement date is commander approved no later than 18 October, then yes, you do have to get the vaccine unless you choose to request to be put on no pay, no points, okay? So let me say it a different way and see if that helps clear it up in case that was a little confusing. Let's say I want to retire. I need to have my commander approve my retirement date by 18 October. Okay, that's item number 1. That retirement date, if it is after 2 December, but before 2 June of 2022, if I don't need any more points, if I've gotten all the points I need for retirement, I can ask to be put into a no pay, no points status after 2 December. In that case, I would not have to be forced to get the vaccine. However, if you need the points, if your date is after 2 June, if your date is not approved until after 18 October, in those cases, as it stands right now, yes, you'd be compelled to get the vaccine. If you have an approved separation date, if your separation date is after 2 December, you will need to get the vaccine. Now, if you are not needing points after 2 December before you separate, you can request. There is the possibility of doing the no pay, no points, but you would need to both talk to your active component unit and your detachment to see if you can get that worked out. It's not guidance. Sorry, my dryer buzzer is going off. If you guys can hear that. It's not approved guidance like the retirements part is. But in general, if you have an approved separation date after 2 December, then you should be getting the vaccine. Do you have to get the vaccine if you are a nursing mother? Right now, the frequently asked questions and guidance that's out says yes. If you choose to, you can try to seek a medical exemption for that, but it's not a blanket one by any means. If you already have a planned move to the IRR, typically it's a 6-month, hey, I want to go to the IRR, okay, which that would have happened, back in June, right? Because this, assuming the 2 December date. If so, and when you do that, you have to say why, hey, I'm going to the IRR for this reason. If you already have a planned move to the IRR, the best thing to do is to speak to your detachment to see whether or not you're going to fall within a set of windows and points, et cetera, that would make it so that you would need to get the vaccine. Okay. All right, more guidance. So if you go to the headquarters Rio website, along the top, you will see guidance updates. The most recent one there, I just updated it again last night, has all the recent guidance, the Secretary of the Air Force memo, frequently asked questions from the Department of the Air Force, vaccine implementation guidance for the DoD. They're all linked there. You can read to your heart's content, but the guidance and updates are there as far as what we know at this point from what's been sent down on the vaccine mandate. Okay, so let me stop sharing my slides. And I see the chat's going wild. So stand by. Just a moment. Okay. So we have, of course, Colonel Amy Bailey, the Rio commander, is here to answer questions. We also have our Rio legal advisor, Lieutenant Colonel Dave Grondike. I hope I said that right. And also from Air Force Reserve Command SG, Colonel Juliana Olson is here in attendance from our medical side. So let me do this because we've got a ton of questions already in the chat. I'm going to read through those. And our 3 question answerers will field those for you if they haven't already been fielded in the slides. And then, And then if you have other questions, you can raise your hand and I will call on you. The answers are going to be given verbally, not typed in the chat, okay? All right. All right, I answered that. All right, Colonel Bailey, so if regarding your opening comments when you talked about possibly pushing off IDTs and AT until second quarter, so for members who do choose to get their shots or need to get their shots, it may be that they do need to use points only then for that. Are they going to be able to do that?
Absolutely. So IDTs for points only don't cost any money. So that absolutely you can do them in points only status.
Great, thank you. Okay, I answered the retirement question. So I'm scrolling through. Vaccines available. Okay. Sorry, I'm working through these, guys. If you do have a verbal question, you can go ahead and use the raise hand function. Can't remember where it is on here. I checked one time earlier. But I will get to these questions. Okay, Colonel Grundyke or Colonel Bailey, I don't know if you want to address this question, but or if you can, but I guess a couple of days ago, the president announced, or the administration announced, that the administration strongly opposes honorable discharges for military members refusing the vaccine. Did either of you want to comment on that? Whether that's true or not is the question.
Yeah,
I don't think we've really heard anything.
Yeah, and so, well, obviously that piece hasn't come out as a direction, but here's what I am telling our folks right now, and I've got it pulled up. I'm going to look at my computer because I want to read this to you how this is going out. Well, I'll just tell you. So what should happen is your active duty unit told you got to get your vaccine, right? And you had to, that was the requirement, right? Or to get an exemption or accommodation. So if you choose not to do that, and the date comes and goes, then we are recommending to active component units to do some sort of administrative action. So LOA, LOC, LOR, whatever that might be. If you then fail, you take that, you get that administrative action, nothing happens, you don't get a vaccine, religious accommodation, whatever, then we are not recommending, but an option for the active component, which is what they will do for their active duty members, is potentially a higher level of administrative action, which could be LOR, Article 15, whatever. That would then lead to whatever next action happens, which could be discharge. We have had no discussions about what type of discharge that would be, nor do we have any direction to sway folks on what kind that would be. There are, and Aaron, I know you talked about this earlier, there are some discussions happening about the IRR and moving into the IRR. The current guidance says, no, we cannot move folks into the IRR, but I will tell you, there are discussions at AFRIC that may be being a possibility, but I cannot promise that that will be the case. Does that sort of answer the question?
I think as best as it can be answered right now, ma'am. Yeah.
Unless Colonel Grundyke wants to add anything to that.
Anything from you, sir?
No, nothing from me. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so a member says, I contacted the chaplaincy about religious exemption. They directed me back to the unit, and the guidance I've received is that the member needs to submit an MFR to his commander. So why are we being told to seek guidance from the chaplain? I would imagine that we are being told that because, again, every unit's different, right? I mean, there's a set way of going about the exemptions, but at least the chaplaincy can tell you what the first step is. Does anybody else know more than that? Okay. For reservists using TRICARE Select, are the efforts underway to pull vac status. It is inefficient to receive TRICARE funded vaccine at Walgreens and then have to provide documentation back to MyPERS. I would, Colonel Olson, I don't know if you want to hit that. I mean, those systems probably just don't talk to each other. Anything from you on that, ma'am?
Yes, hi. Unfortunately, the systems do not talk to each other. Every once in a while, there is something that will pop up and evidently somebody feeds it to an RMU, but the TRICARE systems, the VA systems, and our ASIMs/AFSHIPs have to be hand jammed in unless you are getting it at an MTF or an RMU. I wish that they all work together. It would make our life a lot easier, but at this point, they don't.
That's kind of what I figured. I mean, it seems like a lot of us in the IMA world, you know, it's systems-based stuff. I'm going to skip over the snarky comment on what I look like.
Can you, I have a quick question. Can you address the one before that though, the DAFI 52-201?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I did. I thought we did. It seems so. I guess if the religious exemption starts with your commander, but goes through the chaplaincy. So, thank you. Okay, Ms. Robert Soldsman, you're having issues with MyPERS. I was just on it this morning, but what I would probably do is contact the Total Force Service Center. Option 5, a lot of times they can help you with technical issues with MyPERS, but they might be able to help you troubleshoot why you're having an error to try to upload your medical documents. But you can also contact your active component MTF and provide the documentation to them so that they can upload it into your medical records. Colonel Olson, this may be one for you. The AFI governing exemptions allows for an exemption if you have natural antibodies to the disease. So why is that not applicable for the COVID-19 vaccine?
Well, that is an excellent question that we've been getting a lot. And the AFI was written before COVID ever came out within the human race. So it takes a long time for the AFIs to change. What they have found in the CDC and the scientific community is that the amount of immunity that you get from having the actual COVID disease wanes rather quickly. So the risk of reinfection and spreading that infection to others is much higher. The amount of immunity that you get from the vaccination lasts longer, is a higher level of immunity. All of this is still new. And, you know, a lot of the influenzas, things like that, we have had centuries to research. Our research is happening every single day. Things are changing every single day. But the point of the fact that actually having the disease does not give you the sustained immunity such as the chicken pox would is already a scientific fact. So that's why it's still mandated that you have to get a COVID vaccine.
Great, thank you, ma'am. Looks like in the chat there's some more specific guidance, I'll copy and pasting, I think, regarding the religious exemption. Sorry, I'm trying to read as fast as I can. When in doubt, contact your active component commander and unit about doing that. It seems like my wording on the slide about contacting the chaplaincy directly was ambiguous, so I apologize for that.
Ma'am, may I interject on the chaplaincy? I'm a religious affairs airman. And so just as a point of confusion at the moment is we're actually being advised to be very careful or try to avoid advising when people are reaching out, trying to figure out how to, if they're going to claim a religious exemption, because many of us are not really sure where we're at with such things. So because we are in the chain of command in the process of the evaluating the MFR and doing the interviews, it's putting our own staff in a bit of a awkward position of normally wanting to be able to have privileged communication and involve in the conversation into spiritual discernment, religious concerns, but at the same time, knowing that if somebody files a religious accommodation request, that request will come down, and we don't want undue influence on having helped craft that member's objection. So that's, any more guidance there would be greatly appreciated. Thank you.
I appreciate that very much. Very much. Thank you. There was a question about who the commander is for an IMA. Is it RIO, DET, or active duty commander? So there's shared administrative control between the HQ RIO commander and your active component unit, but operational control from your active component side. So when it comes to a lot of this stuff, that's why it's falling under or allowing your active component commander to be more restrictive than the guidance that was given in the SECAF memo. So it sort of depends on the topic. Just as a general statement, on the quick guides on our website, there is one called AdCon at a glance that'll show you where you need to go for certain things. Whether you're talking about, performance reports or your security clearance or your GTC, because trust me, we've got to double check sometimes. I have this stuff in my head all the time, and I still have to look because sometimes it's my active component chain and sometimes it's my RIO chain. Okay. Sorry, still going through. Yeah, and just so, excuse me, points only IDT, as we call it in the vernacular, PNTs, those can be used and done in the first quarter because it's not a budgetary concern. So to get the vaccine and be in status, points only is okay. Okay, people answering each other's questions. Ooh, this might be one for you, Lieutenant Colonel Grondike. Are military retirement and VA benefits protected if you refuse the vaccine?
I don't know. That can actually be answered because your benefits are based on or some of them are based on your discharge status. So it depends on how you were discharged, if that's where it ends up. So if you get an honorable discharge, then everything's protected. If you get something like an other than honorable, then not. And general, somewhere in the middle. So it kind of depends what you're talking about. But realistically, your benefits, some of those are tied to your status of discharge. So I can't really say whether they will be or not. It depends on how that would go for you individually.
Great, thank you. Okay, a question from Riley Pilgrim regarding courts martials. I think that was all addressed. Colonel Bailey talked about possible disciplinary and administrative actions, but nothing's set in stone or really come about that. Yes, ma'am.
Hey, Erin, let me just chime in. I'm just looking at some of the comments. We are not taking an adversarial approach to this, but the questions we receive from you are the ones that we're trying to answer. So the command stance is not, let's be adversarial about it. But when we have to answer questions such as, I'm going to refuse to take the vaccine, then we have to get into the details of what will happen. If we don't, and that 2 December date comes and goes, or your active component date comes and goes, something will happen. And I just want you to have the information that we know of now so that it's not a surprise then. So definitely not adversarial, as some of you are mentioning. And, this is an Afric-wide issue. I think General Banovich chimed in, and I appreciate her doing so. She's welcome to come online and talk as well. It's an Afric issue, but we're trying to make it as best we can for our IMAs and address your specific concerns because we are different. So we have to address it. The beauty is you have options. You can get the vaccine. You cannot get the vaccine. You can get a religious exemption or a religious accommodation or medical exemption. And those are your choices. Each of those choices have outcomes. And so we were walking through all of the outcomes, not jumping directly to the negative consequences. Just wanted to clear that up. General Banovich, was there anything you wanted to chime in about
I'm not sure. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Loud and
ma'am.
clear, ma'am.
Yes,
Oh,
ma'am.
okay, great. Thanks. Well, I appreciate the informative walkthrough. I think the slides and the scenarios that Erin outlined were pretty helpful. So thank you for putting all the information out there. It's super dynamic. So everybody online, you are asking really good questions. And even though the policy and the strategic point of it all is out there, no pun intended on the point jab thing, but it's the details are not all completely fleshed out, as you can tell. So I think the examples you've given, the guidance you're giving online right now is the best where we're at right now. But for the very specific stuff, it is all the guidance hasn't all been given. So I think I'd like to say thanks to Colonel Bailey and Aaron Carl and to our JA and SG reps for doing the very best to answer people's real questions as they come up. And of course, it's a dynamic situation like the breastfeeding question, the IRR question. I know these are all really great questions that people have that are continuing to be worked on. So thank you for all the guidance you're giving, and keep asking the questions because they affect real people and real careers out there. So we want to make sure, again, General Scobie, I know his goal as always is to treat everyone with dignity and respect. There's no judgment. These due process items are out there for all airmen, and they're really important parts to keep all of us safe in all that we do. So I appreciate everyone's focus on that and the questions. And I agree, it's zero intent to be adversarial in any way, just get as best of the latest information out there. That's all I got. Over.
Appreciate that, ma'am. Thank you very much. Okay, back to the chat. Okay, so just clarification that the member should be in status when receiving the vaccine. That doesn't mean that, if they have a reaction 4 days later, that wouldn't be considered LOD. If the reaction is related to what happened to you when you were in status, that's what's important. Did I explain that well enough, you think, Colonel Olson or Colonel Grondike?
This is Colonel Olson. Yes, it's get the immunization while you're in status. If 4 or 5 days down the road you have a true adverse reaction, then go in, call up your local MTF, whoever you're assigned to, and report that and start the paperwork process. Most of what we would consider a severe reaction will usually happen within the first 30 minutes to an hour after receiving the vaccine. The COVID vaccine is, first of all, it's very dehydrating, but the most reported side effects are severe headache, chills, fever-like feeling, although when you take your temperature, the fever, if there is any fever, it's usually a low grade, and just all around feeling like crap for a day or two. Some people have no problems whatsoever. Other people feel bad for 48 hours and then suddenly feel better. And those seem to be the most common side effects, other than obviously having some pain in your arm muscle where you got the shot. As with any vaccine, as soon as you get a vaccine, the more that you can move that arm muscle around to move that vaccine out of the muscle, the less chance you're going to have of having the pain and inflammation at the site of the injection.
Good stuff. I'm going to keep you on the line, ma'am, because I have another question regarding the medical stuff. Specifically about the Pfizer, which is the one FDA, with full FDA approval. The member says the order from SecDef states specifically the FDA approved vaccine, never say it right, Comirnaty, which is also the Pfizer vaccine. If a member chooses to get another vaccine, Johnson & Johnson or Moderna, is it true, or I guess these companies are not liable for severe side effects under the emergency authorization use? Can you speak to that at all?
I guess that's more of a legal area. You can get any of the vaccines, and that is counted towards you're fully vaccinated. I honestly, the legal implications between it being emergency use authorization or not, that is way beyond my scope of practice.
Lieutenant Colonel Grondike, you got anything you can chime in on that?
I don't think I could be of too much help as well. I mean, we don't really get into the legal aspects of whether you can hold a company liable under something. It's just not anything that we deal with in our practice. if somebody has a specific question and wants to contact us, then, we can either put them in touch with somebody or maybe get a surface answer, but that's about all I have right now.
Okay, thank you. Colonel Olson, it is only the Pfizer vaccine that's being administered at military treatment facilities and reserve medical units. Is that correct? Do you know?
Yes and no. The Pfizer vaccine is the only one that is mandated. An individual can choose to still get Moderna or the J&J. A lot of the MTFs and RMUs do have some supplies of that. So it could be an individual choice, but as far as for what you must get, if you're not really wanting to get any of them, the Pfizer brand is the only one that we can say you have to get at this point. The CDC is expecting the FDA to have the Moderna out fully registered soon. They have been doing lots of investigation on that. I'm sure everyone's following it in the news as well. The J&J vaccine, nobody really has any sort of inkling about how soon that one will be. I know that was my dog that barked.
And is there any word of any shortage with the Pfizer brand in particular? That's another, I didn't know if you knew the answer to that. It was another question in here.
We have not heard of any particular shortage at this time as far as for the DoD purchasing.
Okay, thank you. Question.
Can I follow up on that question? I'm the one that posed it.
Sure.
Is that okay?
Mm-hmm.
So what I was trying to clarify there is that the one that is FDA approved is the Pfizer BioNTech Comirnaty vaccine. And from what the FDA states themselves is that particular Comirnaty vaccine is not available, won't be available for up to another year. Now, the order from the SecDef and then the fact sheet that has come out from the Air Force states specifically that it must be the FDA Comirnaty vaccine, not the Pfizer biotech that is not labeled as a Comirnaty. So that might be a legal question, but it's a very pertinent question because the only one that we're allowed to have is an FDA approved, or the one that we're forced to have is an FDA approved. We're allowed to get the others, but my question is on the FDA approved. If I'm going to be forced to get a vaccine, I want to make sure I have the right one.
I will say I do know, I believe it's on the AFRC website and might be on af.mil as well, but there is an article specifically talking about the Pfizer Comirnaty naming and that. So I don't know if any of that's all I know is I saw that there was an article on it. So I might recommend you take a look at that if you haven't yet already. I don't know if any of our speakers have any more to add on that.
And I appreciate the question. I know that it is a concern. The formulation is the same. It is all Pfizer brand. I know that there's concerns as far as the nomenclature and the name of it, and basically it is a change of label. This has been vetted through both FDA, CDC, higher Air Force SG, and our JAG area, and they said it is the exact same formulation. It is the exact same vaccine. And so the label part doesn't matter. The part that matters that it is the Pfizer formulation versus the J&J formulation. And as Lieutenant Colonel Carl stated, that there is documents out there, so please read them. And there are the statements out there that show that, yes, it is the Pfizer vaccine formulation that is authorized and that the DoD is utilizing for its mandate.
Well, I can follow up a little bit on that, ma'am, if you don't mind. So I think many of us on this call probably know somebody who's had some sort of side effect, and that's why we're probably more likely are objecting to this. My father being one of them. And I think that we have to be very careful because that Comirnaty is the only one that gives you any type of legal standing to seek any type of damages as a result of receiving the vaccine. And if I know that they're same formulations, but the labeling is very critical for legal aspects about seeking damages. And my question is, will we be able to receive a line of duty? I think somebody put in the chat. If we do get this vaccine and have some sort of side effect that's damaging or debilitating, can we get a line of duty with these with the emergency authorization use vaccine versus the Comirnaty vaccine?
As long as you are in status when you get any of the vaccines and you have a bad effect that's not a normal side effect, then you can get a line of duty. It does not matter if you're doing the J&J, the Moderna, or the Pfizer. As long as you are in a status at the time that you get your vaccine, then line of duty does apply.
Yes, and let me chime in on that. Thank you for that. That's exactly what the one or two that I've seen since the vaccine was approved and started a while when folks started the ability to take the vaccine. You know, we've had maybe one LOD, and it did not matter to us. We processed the LOD. Didn't matter what kind of vaccine you took, we did process the LOD. Now, I just saw a comment came up that said, well, hey, if we're not allowed to participate in October, how do we get it? You go no point status to get your vaccine. And so there will be more information that comes out about that if I get money, but you can get the vaccine in a no pay status. So you can participate in October and November and December if I have no money to get your vaccine. So that is not a showstopper. Okay.
Okay, let's move on to the next question. And ma'am, I don't know if you know the answer to this or not. We might need to punt. But a member who already has an approved retirement date, but it's, I guess, maybe after the 2 June, can they ask to move their retirement date up earlier?
Absolutely. You can move your retirement date up. Yep.
Okay. Okay, I think we. Okay, I'm trying to scan through to find actual questions, guys, so just bear with me. Why is it not? So there was a question for clarification on the slide about reactions. It said can be considered line of duty as opposed to will. That's basically because it has to do with what the MTF provider says about whatever reaction it is that you got. So we're, that's why it's, depends on what your reaction is. If you were in status from receiving the shot, the active component MTF provider is the one that makes the determination about whether it's over and above the common side effects. And then you would process the kick off the LOD with Rio Medical. Anybody else want to add to that? Okay. Yes, we will make the slides available after. Thank you for asking. Okay. Sorry, advertisement. Okay. Yeah, just keep in mind, guys, there are some things written in the chat that have that our speakers and experts have clarified or said something different. So keep that in mind, okay? Colonel Olson, well, I don't know if this is, I don't know if any of us can answer this question. The question is, if you get the shot in status, but then have medical issues related to the shot 10 years later, could you get a VA disability benefit? I don't see how there's any way right now for any of us to be able to answer that question. I may be wrong though.
Yeah, there's no way to predict the future. And the VA system is very different than the DoD system for medical retirements or things like that. What I do always recommend to everybody is that when you are at the point that you are separating or retiring, about a month before that, go to your MTF and request a copy of all of your medical and dental records, keep them someplace safe. And that way, if down the line you have something that you think might have been related to your military duty, you have the records. They're easy to get, and you can then apply through the VA for them to do an assessment. But I said 10 years down the line, we have no way to predict anything, but the best thing you can do to cover yourself for anything is always get a copy of your medical records before you separate.
Very, very good advice, ma'am. Thank you. Colonel Bailey, when it says the retirement date approved by the commander, is that the active component commander or Rio? I don't know the answer.
I'm going to throw that out to one of our deck commanders. I'm pretty sure that goes through the deck commander and that's the final. Not sure. Do we have maybe?
Yeah, I'm
Colonel
on the
Ray?
line, ma'am. I'll
Yeah.
take that one. So the active component does coord on it, and then it does go through the reserve, the deck commander chain of command, and then we submit, concur, approve, and submit to ARPC for action.
Thank you. I appreciate that, ma'am. Okay, if you have a civilian job where you think the side effects, the possible side effects from the vaccine might have a potential to affect your civilian job, the question is, would the Air Force be liable in the situation if the member were to lose their license as a result of side effects from the vaccine? I don't know if any of us can answer that question at our level. Yeah.
Agreed, Aaron. We can't answer that question.
Yeah, sorry. Is there an option for early retirement for members who are at 17 or 18 total years of active service?
No.
No. Okay, so I'm just clarifying something there. When we talk about shared administrative control or ADCON, there are some things that are really considered ADCON that are done in the active component side. So just clarifying a comment that I saw in here. Doctrinally, that may sound a bit different, but that's the reality of it. So medical IMR authority, maybe Colonel Bailey or Colonel Olson, for medical IMR authority, is the administrative control of it on the active duty unit or the Rio unit or Rio detachment? Do you want to clarify that?
Well, I think the question is a little ambiguous, but your active duty MTF is they're the ones that service you for all things medical. Our small RMU processes LODs and works some MedCon issues, and we update people's flu shots, dental, vaccines. So we here at Rio don't have that same service to provide you that the active component does. So your servicing MTF is your active duty MTF.
And it may help to add, they do it on the active duty side. We do track it because then we need to look it up for things like, can we cut orders for this person? Are they, red, yellow, or green? So maybe that helps explain. Sergeant Cook, okay. So I believe this is correct, Lieutenant Colonel Grondike. This person wants to know if I'll just quote the question, if the member wants to lawyer up in lieu of requesting an exemption, is the Area Defense Council my resource, or do I need to seek civilian counsel?
You can do either one. You're welcome to go talk to the ADC, and that's what we recommend since it doesn't have any cost to you, but you can always have civilian counsel in addition or alternatively.
Okay. MAGCOMs are expecting massive exemption submissions. 60 days seems a little unrealistic. Why is Rio pushing, why is the debt pushing only 30-day increments for IMAs? Could be 90 to 120 days. Jeff, I'm not sure what increments you're talking about. I don't know, Colonel Bailey, if you happen to know, if one of the debt commanders knows.
Hey, Aaron, it's Colonel Cashman. That's probably a debt 3 thing. That was based on the religious accommodation stuff put out on the 3rd, I think. It said it should make it from the unit to the MAGCOM in 30 days. Of course, it's 2 weeks old, so maybe that'll change.
Understood, sir. Thank you. Yeah, slides. Okay, so if you submitted your COVID vaccine card, the way you know if it's been updated in your records is you can go to the My IMR website and you will be green for COVID. That tells you that it shows that you're good to go. So if you go to the HQ Rio website and select Quick Guides, there is a My IMR. At a glance, it shows you how to log into that website and how to read what you're looking at. But I believe even prior to the 2 December date, any shot records that have been loaded, turn that date green, and it should, I think, show the date of your vaccination. Did I say any of that wrong? Any of my fellow speakers? Okay. So if it seems to be missing, I would recommend sending a ticket on my PERS into the Rio Medical or to your active component MTF, contact them directly and see if maybe it didn't get uploaded when you sent it the first time. Can we be forced to do a points only IDT to get the shot? Should it not be a paid IDT? Anyone?
So you can be forced to go in a status, and the AFMAN, let me make sure I have the right reference. AFMAN 362136 does allow for in-vol being brought in a status, but they have to give you 30 days to do it. So if you want to wait for them to do that and order you into a paid status, then you can certainly do that. We're just making sure everybody has an opportunity to do that. And the easiest way to get your vaccine, if you don't have any paid kind of status left, is to do points only.
And keep in mind, being in points only status is a protection for you, especially if you're receiving it on the civilian side, right? Because if you're not in status at all, then and you were to have some sort of reaction, you wouldn't have the opportunity for a line of duty determination. But putting yourself in a points only status offers you protection. It's a good thing as far as what you're doing. Okay. Can anyone address sanctuary and how it would apply to this if members are within the sanctuary window and choose not to receive the vaccine?
I cannot, but I don't know if Colonel Reyes maybe can.
So I will say that sanctuary does not protect for with cause. And so if they decide that this is an action that is incompatible with continued military service and the consequence of not getting the action leads to a letter of counseling or a letter of admonishment or a letter of reprimand, depending on the path that the active component supervisor pursues, it could eventually be seen as a separation with cause, which sanctuary does not protect from. And Lieutenant Colonel Grondike could probably chime in as well if I misstated anything.
No, ma'am, I think that was perfect.
Awesome, thank you. Okay. Sorry, I'm still trying. There's a lot of chit chat and not questions. So okay.
Hey, Erin, one of the questions I saw on there repeatedly was about how do you do the IDT points only? So for those of you who are looking to set that up for FY21, FY22, which of course is only a few days away, the trick is that you have to have all of your FY22 IDTs already in there and approved before you can submit the points only. That's just the way the system works. So for example, if you're a 24 IDTer, you just have to have all your 24 IDTs scheduled and approved by your supervisor, and then it will allow you to schedule IDT points only. If you try and schedule a points only IDT before you have those, it will not let you. And that's probably why you're getting any error messages or not able to do it. So that answers a couple of questions out there.
Thank you, ma'am. I'm still back at timestamp 1237 looking through questions. So.
But then that doesn't prohibit you from changing those paid days. So just know if you put them in there, you get them approved, which is hard to maybe know today what you're going to do, in 9 months or whatever, but you can change those. What it does help us do, which is why we said everyone needs to have all of their paid IDTs in the system by 15 August, which was over a month ago, it obligates the funds. So maybe we won't be in the same situation next year, what happened the end of this year is folks didn't put their stuff in, and so it didn't look like we needed as much money. So we didn't get as much money. Then everybody put their stuff in the last 2 months, and there was no money, right? We ended up finding the money, but that's why you need to put your stuff in soon. It obligates the funds. Okay, thanks.
Thank you, ma'am. We have a question regarding PIRRs and their mandate. Somebody needs to mute, please.
There are
But PIRRs and the mandate, who do they go through for, since they don't have an active component unit? So I know we've got a couple of our churros online who oversee the PIRRs, or somebody else who can answer that question.
Hey, Erin, this is Lieutenant Colonel Reckesage, and I work with the PIRs for Cap USAF. They actually do have an active component that they are attached to, and if they have any questions, they can reach out to me, and I can help them on that side. I don't know for sure about the ALOs, but they're attached to the Air Force Academy that has an active duty chain as well, but they can reach out and we can help them figure that out.
Great. Thank you very much.
The ALOs also run through an active duty chain of command. So that is not an issue at all for our PIRR folks. Both of those Cat E groups fall under an active duty chain of command.
Yes, ma'am. And ALOs can always call Det 3 as well if you have any questions.
Great. Colonel Olson. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, I'm in coordination with Cap USAF leadership, Colonel Wooten and Colonel Schwartz. If any of the PIRs have any questions, like Jason said, please reach out to us here at Det 6. But I've been in communication with both of them, how we're tracking the PIR folks that are assigned to Cap USAF.
Great, thank you. And hopefully I still have 192 unread chats because I'm trying to go in the order they came in. So if I haven't gotten to your question yet, I'm not ignoring you. I'm going on timestamps. So hold off because we very well may answer your questions, but we will get to them.
But Erin, so we're on 1 hour and 15 minutes now, right? So at some point today, we should pick an end time. So maybe we leave it open for about 15 more minutes and then see if we can follow up the chat later. Okay.
We'll see if we can do that. So we will blast through. I'm just going to pick the big targets then as best I can through here. Colonel Olson, I guess the directive that this person's quoting says for nursing mothers who apply for medical exemption, the guidance says that some mothers may be approved for an exemption, but not all. Do you know anything more about what that distinction might be, or is it just the person wants to know, is it just up to getting lucky with the person, the MTF provider that you seek the exemption from?
Okay, I'm assuming this is specific to breastfeeding mothers versus just any mother.
Oh, sorry, I thought I said nurse. I said nursing mothers. I apologize.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, no, it's what it is, because right now it is not breastfeeding, excuse me, is not considered a medical exemption. It is highly supported that breastfeeding mothers get vaccinated through the American College of Obstetrics, Gynecology, American Pediatric Association. All of the medical providers say this is a good thing. Part of the may is that if there are other extenuating circumstances that would suggest that you need a medical exemption or a temporary medical exemption while you're breastfeeding, that has to be looked at by your individual medical provider. So that's hence the language of a may, is you would have to discuss that with your individual provider and provide any sort of documentation that they require in order for it to fit the realm of a medical exemption. I said everything is very fluid with these type of items, so things may change in the future. We don't know. All we can say is at this point, it's not considered a medical exemption.
Thank you, ma'am. Another question, couple of them all into one, but Regeneron, I don't know if I'm saying that right. Does that meet the mandate requirement? And can you also talk about any commingling of whether it's safe to do the flu shot and COVID vaccine near each other?
Okay, I don't think I understood the first part of that, but as far as having the flu vaccine and the COVID vaccine, you can get them at the same time. That is not a problem. You may kind of feel really bad the next day because both of them are very dehydrating vaccines because they work rapidly and with your immune system. The currently, you should only administer the flu vaccine with the FDA approved formulation of the Pfizer, unless the individual wants to, on their own say, yes, I'm fine getting the Moderna or getting the J&J with my flu vaccine, but you can have them at the same time. Currently, the only approved vaccines for COVID that would meet this mandate are the Moderna formulation, the Pfizer formulation, and the J&J formulation.
Great, thank you, ma'am. Question maybe for our if I don't know if the other debt commanders want to chime in, but basically, should we keep our debt updated on our status in this process? I don't know if they're talking about if they're in the midst of seeking an exemption or if they're working on getting their shots, or is keeping their supervisor updated good enough? I know the big thing is, when your exemption is approved, it goes into your medical records. When your shots are done, if you do it that way, those go in your medical records. And that's really the information that we're pulling, from the reports at Rio. Anybody from our debt commanders, maybe want to chime in on that?
Hey, Aaron, Colonel Cashman. Unfortunately, all we have is ArcNet. So if there's an exemption in the works, that's not going to show up. It's just going to show that they haven't received the vaccine. So yes, if you have a pending exemption, please coordinate that with the debts so we can, in the case of debt 3, extend your orders 30 days at a time as it's gone through the process.
Great, thank you, sir. Okay, sorry, trying to find real questions here. We've got about 13 minutes left. I did see a question about taking, going outside the vaccine lane, being that there's now 204 outstanding chats that I have not yet to see. We're not going to be able to address any other concerns right here. But if you do have concerns about, the CR and funding and orders and all that kind of stuff, you can certainly contact your detachments, and they will try to help you as best they can.
Hey, Aaron, let me chime into that. Don't contact your debts yet.
Oh, yeah.
Because they know what I know. And I just told you and the team on this call what I know. Okay, so don't contact your debts yet. What I would do is, if you can move your AT and IDTs to the second quarter, do that. If you can do it, that's what I would recommend. It would cause less stress on your life if you moved into the second quarter and beyond, right? What I'm still waiting on an answer for is when this money's coming, if it's coming, and what the ramifications of that are. We should get something today or tomorrow, but there are 281 annual tour orders ready for approval and funding sitting in the queue, but I can't push any of them. So if you think you're going to work on the 1st of October, that's probably unrealistic. But I can't say that November won't be, it could be totally fine in November. Yeah, and if I see that pop up, if you're not eligible to perform in quarter 2, or you're not going to have a good year, then you're probably, the guy or the gal that needs priority on that list. I see some other things popping up about getting paid for IDTs and fiscal year 21. You should have those submitted already in UTAPs, and the folks are working hard to get those paid. But don't go out there and spread the rumor that for sure nothing's happening in the first quarter. I just wanted to give you a heads up and give you some transparency. And for folks that are frustrated because you don't have your AT orders yet, that's why. Okay.
Thank you, ma'am. There was a question about the frequently asked question document being updated from 2 weeks ago. That FAQ document is from the Department of the Air Force, not from headquarters Rio. So when further guidance, and really what I'm about to say applies to a lot of the things I'm seeing in the chat. If we're not being able to answer the question to your satisfaction regarding things like, separations or retirements, or whether or not you can go to the IRR or whatever, it's because we don't know either. We are also waiting for additional guidance to come down from the DoD and Department of the Air Force and AFRIC, because some of this stuff is still in flux and discussions are happening. I will tell you, it's probably as frustrating for us as it is for you, because we would really like to be able to answer all of your questions definitively. And we've been working for up to a week now trying to get this event and the information given as clear as we can with the information that we have. So if you think if you feel like I'm skipping over your questions, it's because I know that we're not going to be able to answer it any more than we've answered it already. Okay. But there's a lot of stuff that in the chat that's making it rather difficult for me to find actual questions. All right, here's what I'm going to do. I got 10 minutes left. And guys, I'm going to ask you very respectfully. I scrolled all the way down because otherwise I'll be here for 40 minutes trying to read questions. If you have a question that has not yet been addressed, not been addressed to your satisfaction necessarily, because trust me, some of the questions we've not been able to address to our satisfaction either. If there is a question that we just simply haven't addressed that you feel we can, with the knowledge that we have at the level that we are, if you can put it down in the chat, just to try to hone down on things that we can actually answer for you. I don't know, does anybody know if you put in for religious accommodation, it is denied, is there an appeal process?
I can speak a little to this. Yes, there's an appeal process. It's contained in the AFI. Your first crack at it goes to the MAGCOM commander. If that's denied, then you can appeal. I believe the appeal authority is SG, Air Force SG or AFRIC SG. So you can look at the AFI if you want more information, but yes, there's another process.
Thank you. Any questions about any other vaccines other than the 3 that we've repeatedly listed, Johnson & Johnson, Moderna, and the Pfizer? Those are the 3 that are approved and that will satisfy the mandate.
This is Lieutenant Colonel Castillo with a 2-part question.
All right, go ahead.
First, I'm a fairly new IMA, and 1st of April is when I came on board. And when I left the Guard, I was on track to be eligible to retire on the 21st of December. As my records transfer over, I guess not only information transfer over, but now I owe 2 years to retirement instead of being eligible by the 21st. Any way to expedite? I already submitted all the paperwork to get those 2 years, good years back, in order to be able to retire by the 21st of December of this year.
Is there someone online who can answer that question for him, other than ARPC retirement?
I don't know that anyone can answer that question for him online. This is Colonel Reyes, Det 5. I don't know what det he belongs to, but I would say that's a very specific and unique individual question. And your best bet is to reach out to your det for some guidance, and also the retirement section at ARPC.
Excellent, will do. Thank you. And then the second part of that, not the same question, but the question that I have is, I have an appointment on the 27th of October to have a doctor review my medical history in order to recommend whether I'm, should take the vaccine or not. Can I get for points only orders? And if so, the second part of that is my detachment, because my security clearance is being adjudicated, will not allow me to submit any request for any active duty orders, AT orders, or even my IDTs. So how would I go about getting those point only status?
Yeah, what detachment are you assigned to?
Detachment 6.
Okay, Paul, so we're not gonna answer that right here on this call, but Paul, if you can connect with this member, that would be fantastic.
Great, thank you,
Good thing,
ma'am.
Just call the detachment right now and ask for myself. I'm in the office.
Thanks.
If a member is seeking an exemption, but it's in process, does RIO or the detachment need to be notified of that, or are we just tracking the approved ones as they're entered in the record?
Well, I think Colonel Cashman just said they appreciate knowing if you're working that, so that we can stop sending a note to you every single week about getting your vaccine. So it cannot hurt you to keep your detachment informed of what's going on with your particular situation.
Thank you, ma'am. I may have been reading forward in questions when Colonel Cashman was talking, so I apologize.
No, you're knocking it out of the park, Erin. You're doing great.
All right. All right, 5 more minutes, and then this fun-filled party is going to come to a close.
Colonel Carl, can I ask I'll try to make a really concise question that should be broadly applicable.
Yes, please. Thank you. Go
Okay,
ahead.
sure. All right. So as far as advisement, so I think maybe many are in a situation, certainly not all, many situations here, many might be in a situation of trying to determine if their objection is religious in nature versus medical or administrative, so, political, all that kind of stuff. It can get very convoluting. So in my exploration, being I'm in the chaplain corps and I'm trying to figure some things out, is I have an order from my active duty commander, maybe many others have similar, and it states to contact chaplains for religious advisement and to contact your area defense council for legal advisement. Well, I've done both, and being a part of the chaplain corps, we are just not in a position to provide the religious advisement on if someone's concern is or is not religious. We're being directed to say, please write your own MFR and then submit it to your commander, and then is our chance to review it. And so I'm in that unique situation of I have my own concerns, and I feel like I have no avenue to vet my MFR legally or religious. So I'm making sure there's no medical content, so anyway, I'm feeling there's a general lack of advisement because we're kind of hamstrung in this situation. Maybe I'm seeing it not completely clear. So I turn that into a question of how do we get advice when ADC is not available until we have made a choice to not follow an order. And the same thing for chaplaincy. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sergeant Cook. We appreciate that. Since we weren't able to bring in other people from the chaplaincy, so having your expertise here is helpful.
Yeah, but
okay,
I think, Aaron, I think we need to see if Colonel Grondike can answer his question.
Yeah, oh, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead, sir.
Sum that up for me again real quick so I can give you a better answer than what's in my head.
Yes, sir. So my question is, in drafting a memorandum for record for religious accommodation, to make sure that the letter doesn't run aground into a potentially being viewed as a medical objection, and that could be reviewed by JAG if I'm understanding correctly, religious in nature to validate it indeed religious.
Sorry, I lost you at the end. I don't know if you're done, but your question was whether you can get someone to review your memo before you submit it to make sure that it's religious versus pouring over on the medical side. You can always ask an ADC to review it, but the memo is not a legal document, and they may not be an expert on it or know what to do really. So I mean, they can give you some advice, and they're pretty good counsel. So I would recommend you can always ask, but ultimately it's going to be your memo, your reasons, and when you and you could submit that, it may have some other factors in it, but that doesn't mean that it's not adequate. So I guess the short answer is yes, you can always ask the ADC to review it, but understand that they're not an expert on this specific subject either. And so while they will give you some good advice probably, just be aware of the limitations.
Thank you, sir. ADC, at least at Wright-Patterson, has already specifically communicated to anybody contemplating an MFR that they cannot advise or represent anybody prior to a choice and action of not following a lawful order, and then charges being filed by that commander. So they said that's the only point that they can even get involved in advisement. But anyway, if I'm getting too detailed, I apologize.
All right, thank you very much.
Well,
We are
so that
coming to
really
the end. I'm sorry, people need to mute.
I was going to say that really the burden is on the member who's submitting the package. So you can write your memo, but that is why you have an interview with a chaplain, because the chaplain there should be able to talk to you and hopefully, work through your beliefs and whether or not they meet the requirements for religious accommodation. So your memo may say something and maybe it's not perfect, but when you interview with a chaplain, the chaplain does his or her own report based on that interview. And so, hopefully those things will come out, and then the chaplain makes a recommendation as well. So don't depend on an ADC or somebody else to make your memo perfect. Those are your thoughts and your reasons and concerns. And then the chaplain will weigh in on the religious specific aspect of it. That makes sense.
All right. Thanks very much, sir. All right, it is 1:30, guys. We've been at this for an hour and a half, and I know we've got a bunch of people, especially some of, not all of our speakers who have busy calendars today. I am sorry if we weren't able to answer all of your questions through all the other stuff that's in the chat, making it very difficult for me to cull that down to the applicable things. But the short version is direct your questions to your active component chain. If it's something that's a RIO specific thing, you can certainly ask your detachment. But hopefully the slides were helpful. Hopefully these questions and answers were helpful. Do any of our speakers have, Colonel Bailey, I didn't know if you wanted to say anything here to wrap this up.
I just want to, yeah, I just want to say thanks to the IMAs out there and all the IRs out there, actually, right? Tough times, tough topics, lots going on. And I just appreciate everybody being kind and respectful and professional. I really appreciate it. Thanks for joining. I mean, it's probably the team that's on this call that are the ones that are knocking out of the park the most in your job. So thanks for what you're doing. I appreciate you being here. If the RAs, because I've heard from a lot of RAs, want to have a separate session for RAs, please get with Mickey and she can host that, and our team is available to participate on that. I've heard from a lot of RAs today. So that's just it. Aaron, you did a great job. Thank you for all your hard work, and thanks to Colonel Olson for being here and Colonel Grondike and the debt commanders. But we're here for you. Just realize it's certainly a lot for us too, and we're sharing what we know. But that's it from my end, Aaron, over to you.
All right. Thank you very much, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your day, but HQ Rio signing off, and I'll be ending the meeting for all attendees. Thanks.